Hello everyone. This is a grand experiment here. My daughter has been telling me for years I should be doing a podcast. Well, I deal with technology all the time and I'm busy working live sporting events just about every weekend. So I wanted to do something raw. So if you know me and you've been following me on my other social media platforms, you know I do something called D.U.N.N Talks. So I've decided I'm going to do a monthly D.U.N.N Talk, but raw. No editing, strictly me talking to you and God. And I'm always going to do it in the wee hours of the morning. So right now it's like 1 a.m. And if you have followed me on all my other social media platforms, and folks, I'm not going to get into what all that I do, because if somehow or another you're finding this for the first time, then look me up, research me, Bruce E. Dunn. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn for Professional. I have 3 Facebook pages, Bruce Dunn, Dunn Enterprises of Central Florida, and my merch Facebook page, which started with my brother, Coco Mungo. That's Facebook. Instagram, I have the bed0254, which bed is my initials, Bruce Eric Dunn. 254 represents second, fifth, fourth letters of the alphabet. So you're going to learn something about me. Everything I do has a meaning behind it. So bed0254, Instagram threads, Instagram stories, Instagram reels. I'm all over Instagram. Plus merch, Coco Mungo on Instagram. Snapchat, TikTok, you name it. I'm out there. X, Twitter. All those things are out there. And because I'm in the media, and not just social media, but 50 years in the broadcast industry, I learned about social media from the early days of MySpace. Now, some of you probably don't even know what MySpace is, but my 2 kids are in their 30s, and when they started in high school, they started out on MySpace, and I started paying attention to what MySpace was all about. So I understood the power of this social media platform long before YouTube was even in existence. But I looked at it from a business standpoint. I looked at it from behind the scenes, how many people it reached. See, I'm in that age, the baby boomer generation, where I hit that wonderful year of age this year of 6'7". Don't know if that's still a thing. If it isn't, I'm sure somebody will tell me. But yes, in July of 2026, I turned 67. So I've been around. Born in 1959. I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. And what I wanted to do on this platform, and I don't know how long I'm going to talk. It could be 10 minutes. It could be an hour. Could be 2. But it'll be basically covering the month's activities. So right now, what are we talking about? We're going to be talking about January of 2026. And as I talk about my adventures, experiences, adversities, and things that are going on in my life through the month of January, I will reflect on my life. I am working on a book, and that book is called The Book of Bruce, Second Bruce. It's a memoir. I'll explain that further down the road. But one of the things that you can do so that we can have an interaction in this medium is ask a question in the comments. And what I will do each month, before I start the next month's Dunn Talks, I will look at the questions and things that you want to know about, and I'll address them in that month's talk. So in other words, January, you see this in January, you put something out there in January before I do the February. I'll always do it at the end of the month. And just so that you know, Dunn Talks, Dunn, my last name. It's an acronym. I created an acronym. Dialogue, Unfiltered, No Nonsense. Done. Okay? So where do we begin? January 2026. 2025 was a rough year for me. The roughest year I have had in a long, long time. I've learned a lot. Yes, even at 66 years of age, I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. But a lot of what I'm learning has been scary, because it's also pissed me off. See, I've been fortunate enough to have to grow up with two parents in the household, mom and dad, both, working class. The silent generation, gone through the Jim Crow era. Grandparents dealt with slavery, their parents, great-grandparents. I mean, a lot. But you know what I was never taught? Black history. That's right. I was never taught Black history. Wasn't being taught in schools. See, you have to understand something about me and what you're going to get. I have a completely different perspective on life because of how I grew up. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Now, like I said, I was more afraid of my mom and dad than the police. And during an era where I grew up in 1959, the 60s, 70s, things were kind of crazy, but because of the civil rights movement in the late 60s, people wanted to get along. They knew black folks were being oppressed. They knew what slavery did. They knew the brutality against the black culture. So they wanted to erase it or kind of make it a little bit better. So I guess the best way to explain it, as a kid growing up, I understood prejudice and racism in a different mindset. Completely different. My mom is from South Carolina. My dad was from Georgia. They had both passed away. My brother passed away. It'll be 3 years this May. So it's just me. Just me. My brother's 7 years older than me, so he passed away at the age of 70. So my life has been different. They were always encouraging. They were always positive. And the biggest thing that they taught me, education, knowledge. No one can take education away from you. Knowledge is what will set you free. My mom was 100%. She was a teacher. She had a PhD. She had her undergraduate degree and her master's from 2 black colleges and universities in South Carolina, and then she got her PhD from Long Island University. Whereas my dad now had an 8th grade education. That was it. He went into the Army. That's how he took care of his family. And that's how he eventually lived out his life, through the military. But because of how he was treated in World War II, and he was a decorated soldier, but you know what? I never knew he was a decorated soldier until he died. He never spoke about the war. He never talked about the South and what it was like growing up in Georgia. Whereas my mom, being the educator, she used to ship me off from Brooklyn down to South Carolina every year with my female cousins, and we experienced Walterboro, Charleston, Orangeburg, Columbia, South Carolina. That's where a lot of my family was as a young boy growing up. I understood and I was taught what the Jim Crow South was all about. But I was taught how to be obedient, how to stay in line, basically how to stay alive. So it was different. It didn't seem as bad because I was sheltered, protected from the harshness of the Jim Crow laws that were put on black people. So for me, in my own way, I didn't get it. I didn't see it. I saw it because of how black people were being treated and how I was being treated, and people calling me nigger, and not nigga, not N-I-G-G-A, N-I-G-G-E-R. You gotta understand there was a difference. And I'm not gonna go into that whole history unless you ask me the question in the comments, and I'll explain the differentiation between N-I-G-G-E-R, which my generation dislikes, versus N-I-G-G-A, which my son and daughter use all the time. And I hate it. Because I understand the meaning of that N-word in its purest form and the cutting that it did to my parents, to my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, and older cousins. I can truthfully say, no one ever said that to my face until I went to college. Now, I heard it being said, but no one addressed that to me. Nobody called me a nigger until I went to college. 1977. From high school to the Appalachian Mountains of Ohio University. So, what triggered all of my wanting to get all this black history knowledge, use social media, post it on Instagram stories? It all started because of who got elected president. Not the first term, because the first term I thought was a phase, and I didn't think he'd ever get reelected. But it was the second term. This past year, November of 2025. And then reading Project 2025. And then seeing what this administration was doing to erase the history of black folks. See, we had already been oppressed as a people, so that was easy. He didn't think anybody would push back on that. So then he started going after everyone else. See, black people had already been beat down and destroyed, so we were no big deal. So now let's go after everybody else. And see, for all of you that are watching that may not be black, if you had paid attention to the civil rights movement and the history of what happened to black people prior to the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, the black massacres, the Black Wall Street, had you paid attention to that, you would understand where we are today. And people don't understand when they hear black people talk about systemic racism. Here's a nasty 250-year reality of America. Black people were here long before that. But folks, here's something that most people don't understand. The Constitution was not created with black people in mind. We weren't human. We were considered animals. We were dehumanized. Black people didn't vote. Black people weren't supposed to be human. We were slaves. So when you think about laws being created that did not include, we were 3/5 of a person. You got to understand the history. And once you understand that the laws were not created for you to succeed as a black person in America, then you understood the importance and the power of education. And that's what I was taught. Not all the crazy history. I was, 8 years old maybe when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated? You know when I learned the majority of my black history? When I went to college. Not from my mother, who attended 2 HBCUs. Not from her. Not from my dad. You know what they told me? Stay the hell out of the South. You'll be hung. You don't understand the way of the Jim Crow laws. Wow. But I learned. And because of the civil rights movement, because of presidents, because of politicians realizing the importance and the contribution of black people that wasn't being talked about in history, but they knew, things were getting better. The revelation was a black president. That was never, ever supposed to happen. I would have bet money and my parents, not gonna happen. Never will it happen. And unfortunately, they never lived to see a black president. But I saw the impact on their generation because my best friend from college, who I'm working on a movie with, his dad served in World War II on the 761st first ever black tank battalion under the direction of General George Patton. When he saw a black president being elected, he thought we had come full circle. 2 terms with a black president. Mike's dad passed away. He passed away thinking our world had changed and everything was going to get better. Dr. Martin Luther King's dream was going to come true. But then Trump got reelected. And here we are. And here I am, reliving my life from the 70s, junior high school, all over again. Realizing what I had lived through, but didn't understand it, didn't see it, didn't put it together. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had a very, very successful career in the broadcast industry. 50 years. 50 years. Again, I'm 6'7" come July of 2026. I can't complain about my career, and I have no regrets. Now, how many people can say that? They have no regrets. No regrets. But what I do have is, I won't call it anger, but it's rage some days when I just don't want to be around people because we're reliving a history that they don't understand or know about. So rather than keeping that rage inside, I started creating social media posts on Instagram about Black history. And boy, did I do a lot of research in 2025 and started posting February, Black History Month of 2025. And then I made it a goal and a pledge that Black history was no longer 28 days in the month of February. It was 365 days a year. And folks, majority of the people I know are white, mixed, Latino, Asian American, Arabs, Chinese, I mean, you name it. My circle of people, the majority are white. And it wasn't until this president, the current president in 2026, came into office for his second time that I started learning about and discovering who my friends were, what they were about, what they believed, what they tolerated, and how they saw me. Now, none of them disrespected me. I was a professional. I am a professional. And they've all treated me, and they still do to this day, because I still work in the business, with the utmost respect. But you know why? Education. I learned how to assimilate into a society so that you weren't always judged by the color of your skin, but by your character. But unfortunately, to this day, people still see you first. This is what they see first. And until they get to know you, folks, that's what they see first. So if they have any prejudice, any preconceived notions about who you are, because of your skin color, because of previous experiences with other people from your ethnic group, that's how they approach you until you show them something different. And that is how I've lived my life. So November of last year was rough to see this new president, second term, come in and start destroying everything, all the achievements tied to minorities, women, people of color, black and brown people, anyone that didn't look like them. And then, of course, Project 2025. All of that stuff struck a nerve. And a nasty one, too. But we've gone a year now. We're into year 2. And Black History Month, a lot, February of 2025, a year ago, a lot changed. So, I guess this is going to be my monthly therapy to talk about the things that is prompting this monthly deluge of just talking to you, talking to him, sharing what I'm feeling after 30 days, 31 days, 28 days in February. But it's been busy. And because of being black in America, you're always dealing with adversity. Even when you have a good day, you're dealing with something that makes it a bad day. And unfortunately, one of the things that I'm having to deal with now, which I never expected, starting my 4th year, is being a caretaker for my wife. She has stage 5 kidney disease. She's on dialysis 4 out of 7 days, 4 hours to 5 hours a day. And we're waiting on a kidney transplant. Now, I've had 2 buddies that have had kidney transplants, one in Ohio and one in Georgia. And I've seen the results of what that transplant has done to their life. One was death warmed over, and the other one was damn near close to death. Those transplants changed their entire lives. I witnessed all of that prior to having to go through it with my own wife. Folks, it's difficult. It's difficult. And like I said, I still work in the industry. I do college basketball for ESPN. I do wrestling, AEW, with Turner Broadcasting and TNT. I still do soccer for Apple TV. Occasionally, I will do rugby, lacrosse, and professional women's volleyball. And I've had the pleasure of winning 2 national sports Emmys for working the Olympics in Barcelona, Spain in 1992 and in Atlanta in 96. But I also did the Olympics in 1984 in Los Angeles. I did Salt Lake City, Utah in 2002. So I've worked many, many sporting live events. And here's the big thing. It's only TV. It's not life or death. I'm on the air for, a 4-hour football game, and it's intense. It's intense. But you know what? It's not life or death. That same 4 hours in this house with my wife on a dialysis machine, watching the blood go through her body and being filtered through this machine and then put back into her body through needles in her veins, called canalization. That's life and death. We've had 4 incidents since we've been doing this in 3 years, where she's almost bled out. And you have no understanding of what it feels like to be helpless with not knowing what to do. Just doing what you can and hoping that what you do is going to be okay until you can get help. 4 out of 7 days, it's life and death in my life. So my respite is traveling. When I get to do a live sporting event, I'm at my best because it's real easy to stay focused and it's real easy to be the best in that situation because it's not life or death. And I get to provide enjoyment for people. I'm working a live sporting event. Millions of people are watching the work that I do as an associate director, a producer, a director, an associate producer, a production coordinator, a production manager, audio, lighting. Millions, or in some cases, hundreds of thousands, if it's just streaming. But it's not life or death. And that has now been my life coming into the 4th year of my wife's illness. I'm hopeful that a transplant is going to happen in 2026. But then that's a whole nother thing. I've become damn near an expert in the medical field of understanding medicine, insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, supplemental insurance, Advantage insurance. So I can help you with that because I have spent hours. I have 3-ring binders of detailed information. See, some people that know me from back in the day when I worked in TV production trucks and I used to line up my pens and pencils and all that stuff, and they thought I was OCD or, no. I had to be organized. I learned to be organized working for ABC Sports back in the 80s. Because I had to be the best. I couldn't make mistakes, because if I made mistakes, I would be called the N-word and I would get fired and I wouldn't be hired again. So I had to be the best. Well, that training stuck for years. My house, my life, my work, my travel, everything is about precision. Everything is about organization. Everything is about planning, looking ahead, multiple calendars, compartmentalizing. See, I don't multitask. I compartmentalize. I start on something, I finish it. I start on the next thing. If I'm interrupted doing something, I stop, change mindset, and focus on that one thing. Think about that in the house with my wife doing dialysis for 4 hours. I try to do other things, and I can do other things. While she's on the machine, I have a window to get other things accomplished around the house. Cleaning, preparing a meal, organizing, doing bills. But I'm also in tune to when she calls me. I'm also in tune when I hear certain bells go off on that machine in the room. And when I hear those bells, you stop what you're doing. You forget everything and you get focus on what it is you're doing. Because when I step into that room with my wife, it's life or death. No playing around. Gotta be right, can't be wrong, can't make a mistake. Because if a mistake is made, it's her health and it could cost her life. Now, granted, I'm not the expert. She is. But I have to assist her, keep her calm, keep her level, keep her thinking fresh so that she can teach me what I need to do to help her. Try that, folks. 4 out of 7 days where it's life and death. And I also do live TV. See, I've been talking to you here on camera, real time, no editing, live. Why? Because this is easy. Because it's organized. My thoughts are organized. I can bring it all together. And that's what I'll be doing once a month. So this first video is kind of like, it's like a brain dump. It's me getting all those things out to talk to you and God that I've never said openly. Now, I talk to God all the time. I have conversations with Him all the time. And I'm in the Word constantly. But you know what? The one thing I have learned how to be is a better Christian by not trying to push my beliefs on other people. See, Gandhi once said, I would have become a Christian had I not met one. And I've been around quite a few Christians when I was born again in 2006 that didn't understand what they were supposed to do with their faith, with their understanding. See, I grew up in a household where I had a mother and father. I was afraid of my mother because of her God. My dad used to smoke and drink. She prayed it away. He stopped. Cold turkey. I couldn't explain it. The only thing I could explain was Mom's prayers. That scared me into never wanting to do anything wrong. That's why I have never had any problems with the law, never been arrested. I haven't even been inside a police precinct, jail, prison, nothing. I've told friends of mine, I said, they always laugh. I said, if you get arrested, I ain't bailing you out. That's not a part of my life that I know anything about and never want to know. Because I was always taught, you don't want to get in trouble with the law. Because of being black in America, under Jim Crow laws in the South, if you got in trouble, you ran the risk of being killed. So there was a fear of police, but yet growing up in Brooklyn, because of how the police worked in neighborhoods, I knew all the police. And I was not a bad kid. I was considered a good kid, so I didn't have any issues with authority growing up. So these are the things that I'm thinking about now. I'm thinking a lot about the 70s and the 80s. This is why I'm writing the book. The book is taking on its own form, and I'm using AI to help write this book as well. Because, folks, I can't even explain to you what it was like when I went to college to Ohio University. It'll be in the book. It's a big chapter in the book, but I didn't understand my mom and dad's knowledge of the South and the Jim Crow laws and the KKK until my sophomore year in college. You know what happened? I worked at the TV station. I worked in the radio station. I had my own radio show. But you know what I also did as a journalist? I interviewed the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. You want to know more about that? You're going to have to ask that question in the comments. That's an experience that will change your life forever. And if you're a journalist, if you work in the media, and you've learned to tell all stories, both sides, unbiased, open-minded, still have your opinions and feelings, then you won't get into these political debates and you won't get into this Democrat versus Republican fights. Because it's not about that, folks. It's about what's here. It's about what people feel in their heart, their humanity, and what they think and what they believe. I spent 2 hours interviewing this man. No matter what I said, what I did, who I became, I was not going to change his mind about black people. Period. Full stop. I'll tell you how bad it got. His daughter had never experienced black kids before until she encountered me at college. She didn't know who her dad was until we all made a trip to the plantation house. You remember the movie called Get Out? Well, I was a part of Get Out in 1978 before Get Out became a movie. Like I said, I won't go into more details unless you put it in the comments. Then I'll talk about it in one of the months. But that's when I understood what the South was all about, what Jim Crow is all about, and started paying attention a little bit more to black history. But again, you get comfortable when things are going well. And it wasn't until I'm 66 years old, folks. It wasn't until last year that I started really, really understanding what I had gone through and what I was experiencing. You know, some people talk about they need therapy and they go to therapy. I don't need no therapy. Black folk, most black folk, at least my generation, baby boomers, you don't do therapy. You're not paying to talk to somebody. What the hell am I going to talk to a white person? Because 90% of the therapists out there and the psychologists out there are white. And what am I going to talk to them about if they don't understand my culture? And if I talk to someone who is black in my culture, they're dealing with their own shit. Why am I going to talk to them, and what are they going to be able to help me with? Not a damn thing. This is why you have to be smart, educated, understand who you are, get into your own head, use your faith, talk to God, and have a means of coping with all of the crazy stuff that goes on so that you can understand it. You don't have to accept it, but you definitely have to understand it. I think me working in broadcast television, radio, and working in the media, being a cameraman, doing news, watching people get shot, stabbed, riots, I got desensitized. I mean, really desensitized. I lived down in South Florida for a while. I covered the riots of Liberty City. I covered the riots in the 80s. I was a cameraman. I did some crazy ass things. But you know when I became aware of my desensitivity? It was when I was a cameraman covering the riots down in Miami. And a person got shot. I was holding a handheld camera and a guy got shot. I had the camera on the person that got shot. You know what I heard? Camera here, back up against the wall, exposed and open on this side. You know what I heard? And through the lens of my camera, I saw that guy in my shot fall. You know what that was? That was a bullet that went by me. I heard the bullet, saw the person that got hit by the bullet, saw the blood from him dying on sight. This is when you know you're desensitized, because you know what my first response was? Wow, what a great shot. That was my response. When I got back to the newsroom, I was so excited because I wanted to show the news director what I had captured. He looked at me and said, "Bruce, we can't put that on the air. You just watched the person get killed." I went, "But it's a great shot. I had it perfectly in frame. The sound." No, Bruce, what's wrong with you? That's when I realized I was desensitized to violence, because I had seen so much of it that it almost wasn't real. Now, think about that. Growing up, 70s, 80s, being desensitized to violence at that level, watching a lot of TV, but understanding the difference between real and not real. TV, make-believe. Now, let's fast forward to the 21st century in video games. I don't play video games. But guess what? Call of Duty, all these video games, they're too real. You want to know why kids are desensitized? Because of those video games. They have made all these kids not understand that death is final. I had to understand it, and I was right there. It was real. It was right in front of me. So most kids in the 21st century have no idea how to deal with death in reality. So you wonder why everybody's got a gun and they're out there playing video games in real life. There's a lot going on, folks. Knowledge. You have to acquire knowledge. You have to get the understanding of what's going on around you. And through knowledge and understanding, you'll develop wisdom. That wisdom will help you deal with irrational, illogical, unapologetic, racism, prejudice, homophobia, xenophobia. You must understand. Something I learned a long time ago as well. There's a difference between tolerance and acceptance. If you tolerate someone, that tolerance is going to wear off, and that tolerance is going to lead to something that could get you in trouble. But if you accept the situation, like it or not, you don't have to like it, and you don't have to agree with it. But if you can accept it, then you'll understand it. You'll have the wisdom to know how to deal with it. And at some point, you might have a conversation about it with someone and get a little bit more in-depth knowledge about that situation. So like I said, I'm a teacher, I'm a lecturer. I've been teaching high school kids since 2017. I've been lecturing to college students since 2020 actually. So I'm at a place now where it's all about knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. So this is the first month, January.